Good morning, everybody, and a happy Saturday morning. Believe it or not, it looks like Harry may be headed back to court with the U.S. government over his visa again. This is okay. So I'm going to cover this in case you missed something, and then we're going to jump into what's going on right now. Okay, so let's just jump in and cover it. Let's go. Let me start off by just reminding you that the Heritage Group, about a year ago, filed paperwork wanting to see Harry's visa. There was a lot of discussion on the kind of visa Harry might be on. Was he on an A1 visa? People have been denied entry to the United States based on whether they've used drugs or not. Did Harry admit to drug use? Did he not admit to drug use? What was going on? The Heritage Foundation's Oversight Project submitted an FOAI request to the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Customs Border Patrol or Protection, and the U.S. Citizens Immigration Services for Harry's immigration application. It's a 145-page document that they put in, and they want to know if Harry was appropriately vetted. Heritage Group also put together a dossier using the spare and all of his TV interviews where he admitted to using drugs because, using drugs is an automatic disqualification for coming into the United States. And people think he got in because Biden gave him special treatment. Now, before anybody screams, Biden wasn't in office, okay? Harry and Meghan came to the United States March 26th of 2020, and Biden took his oath of office January of 2021, not even less than a year later. But Harry didn't have to ask for permission from Trump because it looks like he came over on an A1 visa. Now, remember, they went to court. They sat in front of the judge. There was a whole discussion on Harry's visa and what he used to come over to the United States. Now, obviously, I'm not going to put all the stuff up here, but it does appear that Harry came over on an A1 visa, which is appropriate for members of the royal family. However, and he is an A1 visa holder because he's a member of the British royal family. However, that means that he's working for the UK government, which he is not. But with the A1 visa, there's a lower security and background check threshold. Only terrorism and national security inadmissibility grounds of U.S. Immigration and Nationalization Act apply. So if he applied for a visa, the U.S. consular office would only vet Harry under the ineligibility grounds found for, terrorism. He would not have been vetted for mental health ineligibility, drug abuse, addiction, criminal background. They just didn't even look at that. Personally, I believe he used the A1 visa to get into the United States because if most of you remember, when they were touring the grounds of the World Trade Center, there was a gentleman with them who claimed he worked for Homeland Security. So it sounds like as he was on an A1 visa, Homeland Security was covering his security, which means the U.S. taxpayers were taking care of his security. But at some point, he had to get off of that visa, and that's when we no longer saw Homeland Security with them. For those of you who may not be aware, the government attorneys who were trying to block the release of Harry's visa actually had the nerve to walk into court, look the judge in the face and say, just because Harry has said it in all of these interviews, and just because he put it in the spare, doesn't really mean he's using the drugs. Everybody went, what? So what you're saying is now Harry lied in his unflinching book and on all these interviews that he's a liar about using these drugs? So the judge takes his time. It took a while for a ruling to come down. But when it finally came down, his ruling was, I want to see the visa. I want to review it for myself. Just me in my chambers. I want to see what paperwork he filled out. Because remember, if he was asked about his drug use and he said, no, I'm not a user, then he lied and he should be thrown out. If he said, yes, I do use drugs, but they gave him a waiver, then people want to know who gave him the waiver. So what's the next thing that happened? Homeland Security goes, oh, we can't find Harry's immigration papers. We need an extension because they've been harder to find than we thought. You knew this was a possibility. So that makes you wonder what was really going on, behind the scenes. They've also said that other government agencies may need to review the documents before they can be handed over to the judge. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I truly believe at this point they had no paperwork on Harry, and so they were trying to create a paper trail. The judge said, I'm giving you 2 weeks, and I want that paperwork within 2 weeks. And 2 weeks later, they handed it over. Now, the judge had other cases to work on before Harry's. So while we're waiting for him to make a decision, the U.S. ambassador to the UK goes, Harry's got nothing to worry about. As long as Biden's in office, he's not going to get deported. And of course, the Heritage Group immediately stepped up and said, wait a minute, why would you be making statements like that? That's even a more compelling reason that his visa should be released. In the meantime, people were warning Harry, you better be careful, because if Trump gets into office, you're not going to get away with boasting about your drug use. But I think Harry thought there was no way on God's green earth Trump was going to get reelected. Just so you know, in the filing, he referred to himself as HRH, which he's not supposed to use. HRH, Prince Henry Charles Albert David George, the Duke of Sussex, Earl of Dumbarton, and Baron Kikil. Yep, he put all that on there. Now, Niall Gardner, who we know is the director of the Heritage Foundation, said that the U.S. ambassador's remarks clearly spoke directly not only to Harry's immigration status, but to Prince Harry's future immigration status, because the Biden administration has really gone to great lengths to protect Harry and has even ruled out the possible deportation if he lied on his U.S. immigration status and violated the law just because he's friends with Joe Biden. The next thing that happened was a bunch of misinformation was putting out saying that the judge made a ruling and it was sealed, but that's not actually what happened. Judge Nichols did an ex parte order. What he did actually, what he put in was sealed. He could have been asking somebody a question. He could have been communicating with somebody privately. There is a lot of variables as to what he did. I mean, he could have been asking somebody to do something, but it absolutely was not a decision. So with all of this back and forth, I want you guys to remember something. It looks like Harry came in on an A1 visa and then applied for a different visa. So what this whole case comes down to is you're supposed to fill out your application. And if you use any substances that you're not supposed to use, you have to mark that on the application. So the question was, if he marked that on the application, he would have been immediately ineligible to stay. And if he didn't mark it, then he lied and he's not eligible to stay. If he stayed, then obviously he's getting special treatment from the Department of Homeland Security. So that's what this whole row has been about from start to end. So Jack Royston, sugar number 2, right behind Obed Scobie, which I find this a little suspect, is the one who made the announcement that Harry's visa status has been terminated. Interesting. Supposedly on September 9th, the case was terminated and there were several sealed orders filed in the case that we know was heard in front of Judge Nichols. Now, of course, his attorneys, Harry's attorneys, are claiming that if they unsealed the records, it would reveal the type of documents Harry used to travel in to the United States, his admission status, his immigration benefits that he may have sought. And so they're saying, the courts are saying that this status is private personal information and is exempt from disclosure. It is possible that the orders may at some later stage be unsealed, at which point we'll know exactly what brought an end to the lawsuit. Until then, we're not going to know what happened. So you would think that things would be slowing down now, but no, because back in October, the Heritage Group decided they weren't done with this yet. And they submitted an application to vacate that ruling and unseal the private correspondence between DHS and the judge. Ooh, this could be ugly. I mean, what you're thinking about it now is that the Heritage Group is basically claiming that the Biden administration somehow influenced the judge. And now, on top of everything else, Newsweek has put up the article because they claim they've seen the filings by the Heritage Group, that the Heritage Group is now suing the Biden administration in order to release Harry's visa records. Oh my God. Like, this is never going to stop. And now that Trump is the president-elect and is going to be in soon, I have a feeling that Trump, if asked, will release Harry's immigration records. They are not giving up getting a hold of Harry's visa because listen, this whole visa, as you've just heard, has been the center of discussions for the past year. The think tank is saying that there is absolutely no proper method by which Harry could have been admitted to the country. He shouldn't have been able to come in on the A1 visa. He'd already quit the royal family. He didn't qualify for a regular visa because of his drug abuse. And so now everybody wants to know what's happening. And now that Trump is the president-elect, I have a feeling we're going to find out. So I'm going to keep an eye on this story, but I'm telling you guys, I don't think this is over yet. I think Harry's visa is going to become public in the end. Maybe not all the information. We know that last time some of the information was blacked out, but I want to know what he's doing. So I'm sure we'll find out. All right, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, the like, the subscribe, and then go down into the description box where you'll find the link to video number 2. Follow me over. Let's go.